Good morning, my Blackberry followers. I'm doing a little quick soap making this morning, and I just wanted to do a quick video to show you what we usually do around here. I make my own soap simply because I find it to be a more superior product. It does a better job cleaning. It's significantly less expensive. Plus, you have a lot more control over what is in the soap and what the soap smells like, which I'll kind of go into that a little bit more when I go outside for the lye portion of this. But I want to show you, I have just like a regular scale. You do a lot of measuring with this kind of stuff. I'm doing a grapeseed oil and coconut oil bar. Both of those I picked specifically the coconut oil because it produces a pretty good lathering bar. I'm not into a lot of the soaps that you see people who will make the really fancy scented multi-layers, colors, they look beautiful type homemade soaps. They are great, they are beautiful, and oftentimes they are wonderful, but that's a cold process soap. I'm doing a hot process soap, and one of the reasons why I do this is because it's quick. And we generally don't like scents. So I don't need to have a bar of soap that is particularly scented, like, you know, pumpkin spice. Or if I do, because I'm actually going to be using some stuff that's a pumpkin spice, but it's the actual spices. It's not going to be the not even essential oils, because I don't find that the essential oils hold their smell very well, even in the cold process stuff. Even with good high quality oils, good essential oils are very volatile and they evaporate very quickly. So I just like non-scented, and this is a quick, fast, and easy way to get a decent amount of soap that will last for us for at least 6 months, maybe even a year. And so anyway, I'll show you what I've got going on. I've got the grapeseed oil that I think I just got at Walmart. This is a big jug that I get at, too much glare there, I get at Costco. This big jug will give me usually 2 batches. This will give me close to 2 batches of as well, because I use something about like 20 ounces of grapeseed oil and 40 ounces of the coconut oil. You do need to use a lye calculator. Calculate to make sure, based on how much oil, the kind of oil, and what your liquid is, whether you use milk or tea or water, distilled water. You've got to make sure that you get the right liquid to the right lye ratio. It's very important. So in mine, I have to have 15 to 22 ounces of liquid, and I just use distilled water because I'm kind of plain that way. So I put my glass container on my measuring device, have it set. This one you can do like grams, or you can do ounces or whatever. You set it to ounces. When you put it on the container and you hit it twice, or you turn it on and then you hit it again, it will do what's called a tare, T-A-R-E, which will basically set it to 0, as if there is nothing on the scale right now. Because we want to measure what's in the bowl, not the bowl and what's going in. So I'm just pouring until I get 15 to 22 ounces. It doesn't have to be exact, but I gotta have at least 15, no more than 22. I got 16.4. Works for me. So I know that this is correct, and I'm not gonna need this anymore, so let's get it out of the way. And I had already pre-measured out in this some lye. I don't know, it's white, a white bowl with white crystals in it. This is actually going to go outside with me because this can actually get very, very smelly, and we don't necessarily want fumes inside of the house. So I'm going to have to transport this all outside, and we'll get that started. Okay, we're outside now. I've got a granite it's an umbrella base that we use for putting things that are hot outside so that it doesn't get onto the wood. So anyway, I've got my water, I've got my lye here. I have a wood spoon that when I put the lye in, it actually kind of hardens up a little bit, and just for interest's sake, I have a pyrometer that I'm gonna read the water. I don't know how well that'll work. It says it's like 50, 58, 53. I'm not sure if it's reading the granite or if it's reading the water. So let's call it 50 degrees, okay? This stuff gets really hot, and we are slowly, we just don't dump this in, because this can be a really significant chemical reaction. We're going to put this in slowly, kind of stir it. See how it starts to turn cloudy. It will like to clump up. I don't know how well you can see that, but it is important that you get all of that into your solution. starting to smell. Starting to give off fumes. Even with that, you don't want that on your skin. It will burn you. It will hurt. You'll start to feel it. It's not going to be burning like 1,000 degrees, but you'll start to feel it. So definitely wearing personal protective equipment is important. I don't know if you can see the steam, but it's actually steaming a little bit. And so let's do a check of the temperature, and it says 76 degrees, 80 degrees. I don't know if that will show up. This way it says 150. So my guess is this is probably a little bit more correct in this direction. So just to show you how much it can increase very, very quickly, you can burn yourself, somebody who's around you, kids, pets, whatever. This is definitely not a thing for them. As long as you do it in a safe location, you'll be fine. But making sure it mixes in with your liquid completely, because you are looking for an actual chemical reaction. I don't believe I have any more like crystals that have kind of clumped up on the bottom. It should pretty much be diluted. Now, you gotta let it cool off. Even when you do cold process soaps, this is something that you end up having to do because you let it come down significantly so it gets closer to actually like room temperature. With this, it doesn't have to come down quite as much because we're raising the temperature of the oil, and this is going to be warm too. But actually, let me put this in and use that as a way to bounce off the, yeah, it's 176 now. So it's getting even hotter. It's warm. So we'll leave this out here for a little while, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. I'll come back out and check it in a little bit and see how it is. And we'll go in and check the oil, because the oil has to be completely melted together and completely in a liquid state before you can actually add the liquid into it. So we got a little bit of a wait time right now. Actually, one of the other things I wanted to show you, I mean, this is where I live. I live deep in the woods, and this is a reason why we don't do a lot of scents, because if you have your laundry soap, your body soap, your shampoo, all of those things carry a lot of scents and perfumes. If you're out in the woods and you're trying to hunt, you're going to be stinking up the place pretty much. Also, all of those perfumes and everything, they block your ability to smell. This is really great, fresh, clean air here. And since we have lived here, I mean, I can smell things that I've never been able to smell before. Like, I smell the nuts in the fall, when the mast is coming down and everything. I can smell that. I can smell when a bear comes by because they stink. I can smell, when there's scat somewhere, because a fresh scat somewhere, because I don't have a lot of those scents and perfumes that my sense of smell has been almost like coated with a chemical, and you just can't smell certain things. I understand that sometimes those things smell nice and they might be an occasional thing, but for us in an environment like this, we have found that going pretty much scent free has been really helpful and it has, I think, made our ability to enjoy living out here in the woods to be better and nicer. So back in the kitchen, we have the crock pot going, and I had both my oils in here. You can see a little bit of the coconut oil still melting down, but this is almost done. This was an old crock pot that I had. We used this actually for many years for cooking, but it developed a really small hairline crack in it, and so it wasn't so fantastic for cooking foods anymore, but for what we use it for, with cooking soaps, basically, it's great. I'm not a fan of mixing my chemicals for this kind of stuff. You know, if I were to dye any wool or do anything like that, versus, you know, then turning around and making a pot of chili or something. I kind of like to keep those a little bit sequestered. The next thing is a immersion blender. This is a crappy one, basically. It's not a very good one. It's a Hamilton Beach that I got at Walmart. It gets the job done, but there's probably other ones that are better, and at this point, you know, probably more powerful, lighter. I got this several years back. It still works, so we just keep on with what we got until it dies, and then I'll get something new. My lye that I had is using, I'm just going to try and rinse that off as much as I can, because again, this stuff is very, very caustic. It's not really going to hurt my pipe. In fact, it might actually do my pipe a little bit of good, but even just the little tiny crystals can get to be quite annoying, and I don't necessarily want that. So it goes on, and you can actually kind of feel it. It's very slippery. One of the things that you can use, like if you do get sprayed, see, I'm like wearing a long sleeve shirt, but if for some reason you were not following personal protective equipment, that you got a little bit on your arms or something like that, using vinegar, that will actually neutralize it. I know vinegar is like an acid, but this is actually a base. So when you put those two together, they neutralize. So at this point, we're going to go ahead and check temperatures. Okay. We've got, back in the kitchen, we've got the lye, and we've got the oils, and they're all basically melted. So without dropping my camera, we're going to go ahead and just pour the lye into the liquid. And you can actually, I don't know if it'll translate well, but you can actually start to see a little bit of a change going on in there. Starts to cloud up a little bit. That's the start of the saponification process. And I'm going to have to put my camera down so I don't spill it. At this point, we are going to now use the stick blender and try and get this to incorporate to what's called a light trace, which is kind of like a pudding, a thin pudding consistency. This is, like I was saying, this is not a very good stick blender because you have to kind of hold on to it. You can't like turn it on and then just worry about moving it. You have to keep depressing the button and maneuver. So it gets kind of loud. Just a word of caution, you don't want to bring your immersion blender up or whatever because it will spray everywhere. This stuff is very, very basic. It will burn you, it will burn things, it gets all over the place. So keeping your stick blender flat onto the bottom of the crock pot is really the best way, and just keep moving it around. splashed it right there. Getting a little bit thicker, still not there yet. So at this point I'm going to go ahead and just get to the point where we actually are at trace, and I'll resume from there. At this point I believe we're pretty close to light trace, or maybe even a medium trace. See how it kind of like sticks thick on the blender there. There's a thickness, a consistency to it. When I mix it, it looks different, it behaves different, it even sounds different. So that lets you know that we're on the right track, and we want to get to what's called a full trace. And a full trace is like, it's really thick, it's really gloppy. When you pick it up, it'll be almost like stiff peaks. If you do, you know, meringue pies and stuff like that, it's going to hold its shape. So I'll be continuing on until I get a full trace. As I was working on this, as I was moving the stick blender around, I ended up getting splatter. I got some on my sleeves. I don't know if you can see it. I got a little tiny bit on my nose, and I got some on my goggles. This is the reason why you wear personal protective equipment. Really, honestly, a full face shield would be better. I don't have one, but at least with this, the majority of, I won't say the majority, but it's on its way to saponification, so it's not as strong as straight lye. But I gotta stop and I gotta wash my face real quick, because this in a minute is gonna start to burn pretty good. So just wanted to emphasize that it happens, and you know, you really, when you see people making soap and whatever and they have this equipment on, it's for a very good reason. So here we are. We have trace, full trace. And the funny thing is, I didn't get very far after I had sprayed myself. I had to stop and wash my face, and in that time frame, this is what happened. So we're pretty much at full trace right there. And I'm gonna have to clean this off. I'm going to actually remove that, make it easier to handle. It's funny, I've not had this happen before. I've not sprayed myself to the point where I had to stop, but it just goes to show you that there is a chemical reaction that's happening, and you stop and you think nothing's happening, but it's still occurring. Now at this point, I'm just gonna kind of blend this around a little bit. What you're gonna do, I mean, it looks pretty darn thick, but what you're gonna do is turn your crock pot back on and put it on low and have it cook for about 45 minutes. Now the reason why you do a hot process, say, versus a cold process, because once you get your cold process done, you're gonna have to let your soaps cure for like 4 to 6 weeks, because what you're doing is you're removing the liquid, or letting the liquid that's in the bars of soap evaporate at a slower rate. When you cook it, you're cooking out the majority of the liquid. So about 2 days later, after this is done, you can start using it. It's also one of the other reasons why I like doing hot process over doing the cold process, is because when you need to use it, you need to use it, right? So we'll let this cook for about 45 minutes. One of the other things is, as you start to see this cooking, it starts to get kind of frothy, even just with a few minutes here that I've started the cooking process, that it looked very thick and dense, and now it's looking lighter and creamier, if you will, frothy for sure. That's pretty much one of the hallmarks of what happens with a hot process soap is it definitely bubbles up and gets frothy. So it's not like say a crock pot meal where you would set it on low and you walk away from it. You don't have to worry about it. This will bubble up and you're gonna have to stir it down a few times because it can and will bubble over. Especially, I doubled the recipe, so this is pretty full right now. Okay, the soap has been cooking now for approximately an hour. It is changed consistency a little bit. It's still malleable because it's warm, but basically at this point it's done. So what I was telling you about scents and stuff, this is basically some pumpkin pie spice that I had made up myself. I had left over, and I wanted to throw it into my soap because it provides a very, very light scent, but not overpowering, and it's more of a natural smell. That was roughly 6 ounces. I'm sorry, 6 tablespoons, not 6 ounces. It will change the color of the soap. It makes it a darker soap for sure. You have to kind of work it in a little bit. But one of the things that I do, because like I said, this is something that is for my own personal use. I don't sell this. I don't do anything with this. So if it's not perfect, it doesn't bother me very much. And you know, perfection or beauty is in the eye of the beholder oftentimes. And as far as I'm concerned, this works just as good. And at this point, I mean, I can barely smell the pumpkin pie spices that I incorporated into this. It will probably retain the smell. In fact, I made this before and I've used it from a batch I made last year, and it does have a little bit of a scent to it, but nothing overpowering at all. It's basically like you can kind of smell it a little bit in the shower, but it's not going to linger on you. It's not going to impede your sense of smell, anything like that. So I'd say that's pretty decent, a pretty uniform consistency. Now what I use, I do not use fancy soap molds or anything like this. You can find these at, if I can move this a little bit, you can find these at like thrift stores. They're silicone molds. I've actually found one that was at Aldi, and I just use it, you know, it's probably an 8x8 or a 9x9. It makes it easy to pop the soap out when you're done. That's one of the reasons why I like this. Plus, when I cut it, I use usually one of these two things. This was like a Pampered Chef thing. This was something that I found at a thrift store. Both of these I found at thrift stores. You don't have to have anything like this, but when you do cut them, they are kind of a little bit of a challenge to actually break through. But when I cut them, my soap will be pretty high up, and then I just cut them thin and then usually across, or maybe twice this way. So I'm functionally making a bar of soap, but I'm cutting it I'm using a different mold and I'm cutting it so it looks like a basic bar of soap. And then you can make it as thick or as thin as you like. You know, that's, I think, one of the nice things too, because sometimes when you get those really fancy bars of soap, they're like just barely an inch or so, and you're paying like $6 for it. And it's, you know, small, it's, I don't know, an ounce or something like that. But with this, I mean, I can make that sucker 3 inches thick, and it's, you know, like 2 inches high or whatever. And you've got a, you know, nice chunk of soap that will last for a while in your shower. So from here, it's pretty hot. I'm gonna go ahead and just, I use a trivet to kind of support it, load it up. And I'll show you my finished product in just a second. This is basically the soap, and it's funny, as I'm looking through the camera, my soap actually kind of matches my countertop. How funny for that, but I just kind of patted it so to make it fairly level. So when I do cut it, I'll have more or less even bars. You know, you don't want to have like kind of thin on this side. But again, it doesn't really matter. You're the author of this, so you can do however you want. And like I will cut it maybe once this way, and then cut them two, you know, so that they're like probably about that wide. That's like about 2 inches or so wide, and keep doing that. And if they're not exactly uniform, it doesn't matter because it's for me, but this will make a good bar of soap. And this square will probably, that's enough soap for 2 people, for us, for probably a good 6 months. And just a few hours worth of work, and it all turns out well. So I hope you guys enjoyed this, and if you do, so that's basically it for hot processing soap. And just want to ask that if you like what you saw today, if you could give us a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, I would appreciate it. Share it with your friends. That way other people can see what we've got going on here for all of my Blackberry Bear followers. And remember, you guys are the gold. Thanks. Bye.